Exactly 2 years ago, I ranked the top 10 best uniques in Jurassic World Alive, and you guys seem to enjoy that video. So, today I'm going to be following that video up with the top 10 best overall creatures in Jurassic World Alive. This list will be including uniques, omegas, and apexes, all alike. So, I hope you guys enjoy this video. This one is going to be a little bit different from the one last time. I've obviously been way more accustomed to this kind of editing and, voiceover type of commentary. So I'm going to be doing my best to rank the creatures as accurately as I can. I hope you all enjoyed this video. And with that out of the way, sit back, relax, grab a drink, grab a snack, and enjoy the show. To kick off this list at our number 10, I'm going to be putting Atrocimoloch here. A lot of people at first thought this thing would be incredibly shit. However, it has started to get on people's teams a lot more, and it can be pretty lethal with base stats of 4,500 health, 1450 attack, 124 speed, 15% armor. This thing is actually really, really good in combat. It does have its own pretty significant weaknesses, that being not having any swap prevention immunity or resistance, not having full stun immunity, or bleed for that matter, or not even having speed decrease immunity, all of which are really good immunity to have at the moment. At first, I was a big fan of this thing when it first came out. I really thought this thing would have a placement in the meta, and a lot of people didn't really think so as well. However, like I said, now it's starting to touch up on people's teams a little bit more. Most stats have around 8,000 health and 2,600 attack, so this thing is very dangerous at tier 2 when used correctly. Its biggest weaknesses do include stuff like having Dsunga swapped on it, or Thylos for that matter. Other than that, it can hold itself really well, and that's why I think it's made its way into people's teams. People have figured out that it can do a lot of damage, tank hits, heal, and I haven't even talked about what it can do. It has Precise Shattering Counter, Swap and Shield, Berserk Rampaging Cloak, Instant Stunning Impact, Decelerating Group Heal, and Shielded Heavy Strike. So I do think that this is a good, solid creature to put on your team if you want something fun to use and something meta. Overall, I think this is a great creature and one of, if not the best, of the Atrociraptor hybrids. Surprisingly enough, I'm going to put Tyranikyrie at the number 9 spot. Now, if this was 2 or 3 months ago, I would have put this at the number 1 or 2, but times have definitely changed for it. With good base stats, 5,100 HP, 1,550 attack, 128 speed, 25% armor, and 10% crit chance, this creature can hold its own very well, and it's an extremely versatile dino, hence why I still think it's a great dino, but it's not something, that you must have on your team, unless you just really like apexes. This creature does have very good immunities. It has bleed immunity and swap prevention immunity, that being the best current immunity in the game that you can have. It doesn't have any rend or vulnerability immunity, so especially with the Thylos going around and a lot of new creatures coming out with each update that can utilize rend or vulnerability, it does take a big hit. With stuff like Pantherator that have Hunt on Escape or Clever Girl, this thing can't really swap in on it. However, it can do a very good job at just doing overall good amount of damage, or if you open with it and they open with something that can screw you over, you can use Alert Squall and sway the match in your favor, or you can just, play around with their team and mess up their combos, which I think is a very good thing to do. I don't really have anything negative to say about it overall. I think, yet again, it's strong, but you don't really... This thing isn't a necessity on your team. What I'm trying to say is you can have it, but in a way you just, there's other things that you can use, so I can't really find the correct term for it, but you guys probably know what I mean. But yeah, that's a surprising spot. I myself was like, wow, that's really low for something that used to be the best thing in the game a couple months ago. But yeah, moving on to the number 8. A lot of you may be shocked that I'm putting this thing at number 8, and I'm also shocked myself, but I'm going to be putting Geminidues on the number 8 spot with very good stats at 6,600 HP, 1,200 attack, 110 speed, 30% armor. This creature dominated the game for a year and a half now. It's still currently in a lot of people's teams. However, now it's slowly starting to drop off a little bit, but it is holding its own in the meta still very well. It has great immunities and resistances with 50% distraction resistance, 100% immunity to stun. I mean, it even has bleed resistance, for crying out loud. Thankfully, if this thing does not have swap prevention, immunity, or resistance, and if it did, it would probably be the overall best creature in the game. That's the only thing. That's one of the few things saving it from not being that overpowered. With things like trappers that utilize and locking this thing down and keeping it where it's at so they can make a quick kill of it. Geminidues has some very, very good moves: slowing Resilient Strike, Group Disarming Rampage, Shielding Alert Rampage, Harden, and Precise Group Counter, all of which are just there to tear through flocks, any cunning creatures, and even some fierce creatures, although now that we're starting to get more things like Thylos being buffed, Skoonametrodon, those things that can either take it out on the first turn, or, second turn, or things that can just, tank hits and just do enough chip damage until they can go in for their big hit. Geminidues does lack a little bit with the, obvious swap prevention or rend. However, I really don't think it needs that, and I think a lot of you can say that as well. Geminidues holds its own in the meta very well, and I don't really have any negative things to say about it. However, if you're in Gyro, like myself or my friend What's Up, then you're going to be facing a lot of these, and this thing's going to screw you over no matter what. But that thing is going to be at the number 8 spot. And at number 7, I'm going to be putting Dsungascorpios on the list. With very niche overall kind of stats on paper, it really makes up for it with its moves and what it can do. With 3,300 HP, 1,100 attack, 116 speed, 30% armor, and 15% crit. Although I do think it's a little bit higher in the code. Dsung is a very good creature, and it's going to be almost impossible to find a team in the top 50 that doesn't run this thing. Dsung pretty much made its way into everybody's teams the moment people got their hands on it, and it's obvious to see why. Things like Devouring Stinger, Shielded Lockdown, Dispersed Ferocious Impact, Enfeebling Rampage, which is one of the best rampages in the game, in my opinion. Shattering Antidote, which is essentially just immunity, pocket immunity. You can get out of on-escape strike situations or creatures that have non-escape that do damage and pin, that being Pteranokyrie or Constrictoraptor. Dsung can counter a lot of creatures, and it can hold its own extremely well despite having what seems to be niche stats at level 26. However, at tier 2, when you have a 15-15 build, it's obvious to see why a lot of people have this thing on their teams. There's no 100% counter for this thing, in my opinion. I think it has a good chance of beating every creature in the game. But stuff like Pteranokyrie, I guess, can do a good job at killing it. Pantherator, I think. I'm doubting myself a little bit there, but I think if you don't get stunned, you can do a good amount of damage to it. Stuff like Gem. You can do a lot of damage to Gem, but from testing I've done, Gem can get this thing also extremely low. The point is, this creature is kind of like Indoraptor back in the day. Nothing can 100% beat it, but things come very close to doing so. And it's just an extremely versatile dino, and I highly recommend you get this thing if you're able to unlock it. I know a lot of people that will come out and say that Thylos Intrepidus will be on the top 3 spot, and I'm going to disagree with that, hence why I'm putting it in number 6. So Thylos has really good base stats ever since it got its buff: 4,200 HP, 1,400 attack, 125 speed, no armor, 40% crit chance, which is very good. It's got itself some new moves as well, so it's got Wounding Devour Rampage, Dual Rending Assault, Swap In Shattering Prowl, and On-Escape Reversal. Very, very good. It has a good turn tier 5 as well, so whenever it's distracted, it will just cleanse itself and then hit you with a half attack. So it's very good. Thylos specializes in just taking down these huge tanks that don't really have rend resistance or bleed, and it can just swap in, come in, and kill whatever there may be with Dual Rending Assault. Even if you're resistant to the rend, you're still going to take a huge hit. Things like Pantherator can come in though and just absolutely sweep this thing. I've seen like battles where Pantherator just basically takes down Thylos without taking any damage, which is pretty impressive, to say the least. Thylos does have its fair share of, weaknesses. However, that does not really stop it from doing what it does best, which, again, reminds me of Triostronics in the old meta when it was starting to come back, when tanks and other tanky sauropods were starting to make their way in here. I do think that we are going to see a little bit of a drop. That's still not going to stop Thylos from being an overall handy unique to have on your team. I think stuff like Psionics can maybe screw with it a little bit. That is, but it's a little bit RNG reliant. That's just my take on it though. Thylos is number 6. I had an extremely hard time deciding what I'm going to put for number 5 and number 4. But again, this pains me to say it, but I'm going to put Pantherator in the number 5th placement. So bear with me as to why I'm putting it at number 5, and you'll see why in a bit. Pantherator has very good stats: 4,300 HP, 1,600 attack, 127 speed, and 30% crit chance. So again, it's not a Tyrannosaur type build, but it's a cunning that has, almost Tyrannosaur like attack. Which again, I hate to reference this so much, but it just reminds me of the Dominus from back in the day where it had extremely high base damage for something that wasn't a Tyrannosaur. So it has really good resistances. It has distraction and immunity, speed decrease immunity, a decently high resistance to stun, and mild swap prevention resistance, although it is there. And it's got mild vulnerability immunity, which I think is handy at times. Things like Rend and Bleed can screw with it. However, with stuff like Evasive Hunt, Floating Dual Claw, and Hunt and Escape, I don't think you'll have to really worry about that too much. Stuff like Determined Strike, which is one of the best overall strike moves in the game, helps this thing out a lot when it comes to bleed or that sort of thing. Shredding Wound as well, very nice to have that on you, especially if you know you're gonna die and you just want to do a huge hit, whether that be to a Geminidues or some other tank, or just something with high general health, you can go for Shredding Wound and just decimate a lot of their health, assuming they don't have any bleed or rend resistance, which is out a lot pretty much now. Evasive Hunt is just extremely good to have on you. You take minimal amount of damage, or rather no damage. And then Floating Dual Claw, it's pretty much just up to RNG at that point, whether you get the 50% chance to dodge or not. The only reason why this thing is at number 5 is its predictability a little bit. Like whenever I've seen a Pantherator, I usually know what they're going to go for, deciding on a few factors such as like the matchup currently, or why would they put it out if they're planning on swapping. So that's why I do think it deserves to be at the number 5 spot. That doesn't take away from the fact that it can be extremely oppressive at times. But yeah, Pantherator, definitely a creature that will be here to stay in the meta, I feel like, and stay for a while. Like nothing really can stop it once it gets going. Like after that turn 1, it just can, cycle through all of its hits. It can go for Floating Dual Claw, Shredding Wound, Evasive Hunt, or Determined Strike, whatever you feel like is necessary at that point in time. But again, the only thing I wish that it did have was either higher swap prevention immunity or full immunity to stun. That's just me though. Piercing counter nullification helps this thing out greatly with things like tanks and stuff. So again, very good creature to have, and I highly recommend you get it if you are able to. We've had a lot of Panthera Blith events, so I think you should have a good chance of getting this. And also, before I go into the next spot, I completely forgot to mention Swift Wounding Swap and Strike. That thing as well, it helps this thing out greatly. It's a precise attack, it slows down, and it bleeds, so that's really good to have, especially against like other Pantherator or something like Thylos, kind of. I mean, I know Thylos has the on-escape reversal, but I feel like you can do something there if the situation comes to it, or just to get a good chunk of damage off a creature so you can set up. Swift Swap and Strike is just very good on this creature, and I do think it also contributes to why it's so good in the meta right now. But yeah, that's I completely forgot to mention that while recording, so I just quickly jumped onto this so I can mention it, because I know I'm going to get a lot of people telling me, hey, what about Swift swapping? Here it is. All right, now I can go into the next placement. Alright, for number 4, I'm going to be placing Concatosaurus here. Now, before I get into this, I know a lot of people, in my Discord server, not my Discord server, in the Discord server I'm in, a lot of people did say that they would place Concato at number 2, even above CG, which I find like really shocking. But there are a few factors as to why I think it deserves the number 4 placement, although I do think you could switch it between 2 or 3. The reason why it's here is just because I think it has way less predictability than Pantherator, whereas Pantherator only has 2 moves opened on its turn 1. This thing has all 4 of its moves, and I'm going to get into the stats real quick. 5,150 HP, 1,400 attack, 115 speed, 15% armor, and 10% crit chance, so it's got very good moves. I know I said that this thing is balanced in my patch notes video a couple weeks ago. I didn't know what it had, so that's why I said this thing looks, the moves look quote-unquote balanced for a creature like this. Boy, was I wrong. This thing is strong AF. So why is this thing at number 4? Well, I think the other 3 are just stronger than it and do its job a little bit better in a sense. Concato has great resistances. It has 75% distraction resistance, rend resistance, stun resistance, which is alright, swap prevention resistance, alright. It doesn't really have a full immunity here from what I'm seeing. And it's pretty quick as well for a tank, like a fierce tank. So I was pretty shocked to see that it had that kind of speed. Very solid stats. That's what you like to see in a creature like this. I just can't say enough good things about it. I have a lot of fun playing with this thing. It is like a little bit hard to swap on it. You can't really have Pteranokyrie swap on it. Thylos is a little bit tricky. It depends on how much it does heal when you escape. It does okay against D-Stun, although I do think it is up to the stun. But with Cleansing Group Shield, I think it will help it out a lot. I didn't even talk about, its moves. Its moves are also not only good for PvP, but very good for raids. Concatosaurus is also great for raids as well. So it does benefit the team. It targets the opponents, which I think is very good. Where I think this thing suffers is just maybe the lack of a full immunity, I think. I mean, I don't really think this thing suffers from a lot. I think it's just, what kind of RNG is up against this thing. But although I am placing it at number 4, I still do think it's a very, very strong creature and will wall your team if you don't have the correct dinos for it. So that's why I'm placing it at number 4. I'm going to go into the number 3 now. Okay, so I'm going to be placing Skoonametrodon in the 3rd spot. There is one factor as to why it is number 3 instead of number 2. I'll get to that shortly though. However, let's get on to these very strong stats. 5,190 health, 1,900 attack, 112 speed, 10% armor, and 20% crit chance. Very good base stats, and it's what you would expect from a Tyrannosaur like this. Very, very good resistances and immunities. It doesn't have any swap prevention, resistance, or immunity, so that kind of screws with it. Although it doesn't really matter when you take a look at what it can do. It is definitely the alert master. All of its moves are alert. It's got alert strike, alert impact, alert defense, and battle ready. It also has alert counter and a very good tier 5. So if the opponent has 10% HP or less, it essentially just hits you with a wombo combo of a huge hit. Yeah, Skoonametrodon, the reason why I'm placing this thing at number 3 is solely because of number 2, which I will get to in a moment. However, it is extremely good at what it can do. It's very versatile and it kind of has an answer to everything, and I would definitely recommend going for this Apex. It is currently the strongest Apex in the game. Definitely go for this. And now we're going on to number 2. I kind of feel like I was yapping a little bit with the Skoonametrodon placement, so I'm going to make this one as clear as possible, or try to at least. Clever Girl, this thing's going to be in the 2nd place, and I don't really have much to say about it. You guys already know what CG is if you faced it. Yeah, so the reason why it's number 2 is because of its tournament usage. I was going to place this at number 3, but then had someone remind me about it being in the tournament. I was like, hold up, that's a good point. It has tournament usage just outside of arena. So it has very good immunities. It has immune to swap prevention and speed decrease, which are, significant in this meta. High damage resistance, and it also has Tough Group Cunning Strike, Upper Claw, Evasive Hunt, Cautious Double Impact, Clever Counter, and Hunt on Escape. All very good moves, and it is definitely the best cunning creature in my opinion. Like turn 1, it can just go for Cautious Double Impact and do up to 6,000, even 7,000 damage at times. That's not accounting for its extremely high crit chance and high crit damage, which can, reach it up to like 9,000, even 10,000 damage at times. Yeah, so a lot of people are wanting a nerf for this creature. I personally don't think Lydia will do that, considering how many people have spent on it. But yeah, the tournament usage is what bumped it to number 2. You can use it in pretty much any tournament, format, common, or rather rare, legendary, epic, unique, and it'll just decimate you in most formats. It does, like the user with Clever Girl, once they have every move unlocked, you are very confident with what you can do. Not much can swap on you. I think the only thing that can really swap on you confidently, quotation marks, is Pantherator, but that's even if you're in that range. Clever Girl can just swap out, no troubles at all, and that's why it is number 2. You guys know already why it's here. I don't need to give you more explanation or detailed lore on this thing. Let's head over to the number 1 spot. If you thought Clever Girl was bad, then this thing is essentially the resilient version of Clever Girl. I'm going to be putting Stegosaurus ungulatus in the first place for this tier list, or this list in general. Yeah, I'm not usually an advocate for nerfs, but I definitely do think this thing needs at least some kind of nerf or adjustment. Whatever Ludia was smoking must have been hella good, because this thing, it doesn't have any counters for it. I guess you can have Thylos, but what's stopping it from swapping out, really? Yeah, Stegosaurus ungulatus. Shielded Decelerating Strike, Precise Group Slowing Impact, Lingering Ferocity, Defensive Rampage, Powerful Counter Heal, and Swap In Slowing Shields. This creature is extremely good, way too good. Infinite matchups, Concatosaurus and Skoonametrodon. I think it does good damage against Pantherator, although even Pantherator has a hard time swapping on it. The only thing, or rather in a head-to-head matchup, the only thing that I can think of that can straight up beat this thing in a 1v1 is Thylos, which is, good, thank God. Even Clever Girl can't beat the likes of this thing, because it can heal up. I forgot the term for it, but basically if you have 2,200 attack and you get hit, you essentially just heal up your damage stat, which is really good. Defensive Rampage is a cooldown of 1, and that's nuts if you combo that with Lingering Ferocity, which only buffs your attack. So this thing just heals like crazy. You can heal up to 14, like you can heal 11,000 health easy with this thing. So it never fucking dies. Stegosaurus is just way too good, and I honestly do think it does need a nerf. Currently, as I said, with Clever Girl, we do have a unique skill tournament going on, and this thing will just dominate any creature that stands in its way. Like I said, it does have the infinite matchup with Skoonametrodon and Concato, although it does get, both of them very low. Again, hardly any counters to this thing, and I do think Lydia needs to adjust this or, balance it out. But like I said, people are paying money for this thing, and I don't really think they want to have pissed off players demanding a refund or what have you. Again, it's just the strongest thing in the game currently, and I think it will be here to stay for a very long time until we get more creatures that can just kill it very quickly, because if you don't dispatch this thing, it's going to run your entire team over, and it's just going to be hell to go through. But yeah, number 1 placement, Stegosaurus ungulatus. Whew, Jesus Christ, that thing is powerful. And that's going to be the list for this video. I did not expect this to be 30 minutes long. I was just trying to keep it up to like 20 minutes, but there's so many things to talk about that I feel like it's kind of hard to skip over a couple things. I'm glad I got this out within 2 days. The last video took me like a month to record, so I am glad that this one was at least quicker. Thank you to everyone who helped me with the list. I had tons of fun making it. This is going to be super fun to edit, because 30 minutes. I can't imagine how long it's going to take to export, but that's, what, I got the list done. I'm happy. This is going to be a fun one to make in the future. With, of course, with the new updates rolling around, I think we're going to see a huge change in this list. Thank you again to everyone who helped me. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and that's going to be a cut, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.